Well, instead of going in through the window, let's go ahead and do a quick tour, but let's go in through the front door. So this is my wood shop. It's a bit of a wreck most of the time, almost always, I won't kid you. Up there on the loft you see some lumber and my lumber that I keep around for making lures on the lathe. Some tool chests. Here's my lathe, and I've got a nice view of the lake when I want to work here. So originally this was the only space I had. It's a 12 by 16 little shed. When I decided I had to have a parking space for my boat, and I decided, you know what, I need a really good place to make lures. Let me show you what it looks like. Let's start on this end of the shop. That's the faux stained glass window you see at the beginning of that video, and it's actually not stained glass. It's actually Createx airbrush paint, transparent though, but it makes a nice kind of accent. Let me show you how I came up with how I organized this space. So when I was building it, I drew up this drawing and separated all the spaces in accordance with the things I was going to be doing in them. And you can see here all like the major elements, and I made sure that I was close enough to the tools, to the high pressure air, to water, depending on what I needed for that area. So if you can see, this is my paint booth. Over here is where the door would be. So let's take a look around. Starting right at the doorway, this space right here is where I actually do most of my wood cutting. If I'm going to carve wood, or if I'm going to shave down material to actually create a shape, this is where I do it. If I'm going to do a drawing, I usually do it here as well. Actually, production boxes, and let me show you what that looks like. So here, what this contains is all the calculations that I need for weight and balance on the lures. This is the jig for bending the wire. I've got some wire in here. I've got tubes for making the rattle chambers. I've got the weights that I typically use. And so I try to make one box for each lure that I make. This yellow backsplash is actually the floor mats that you use for anti-fatigue. I just cut them up and put them all around, and they make for a really nice place to pin things up. Also kind of deaden the sound a little bit. So here I have a bunch of strips, they're magnetic strips to hang on my stuff. This area here is where I do all my wire bending, and so I have wire bending equipment there. I'll have some wire bending equipment above on the pegboard, and over here I've got the actual wire, and I've got some wire here too, stainless steel wire. My Dremel tool, here's all my chargers and some drill bits. As you move out of this area, you get into the finishing area, and here's where my UV chamber is. That's where I turn my lures and set them with UV. This is another little UV chamber, sort of, where I just do small things, jig heads and that kind of thing. Here I pin up a lot of hooks. This area is where I actually put the hooks on my baits. You see I've got split ring pliers up here and other tools that I use for that kind of thing. This is my dipping station right here. This is where I dip lures and sealers. Here's a bunch of that have been dipped and need to be clear coated prior to being silver plated. And here's a batch that are ready to be silver plated. I'm going to be silver plating probably 15 or 20 in the next few days. This is a float chamber, just where I test how well something floats or suspends or how quickly it sinks. And you can see I've got a little measuring tape on it so I can count it down and see how fast it sinks. And I got little trays everywhere. Here's all my cements, glues, solvents, some foils, more foil. To the other side of the entry door, I have this other metal and glass countertop. This is where I make my molds, and I actually do the castings here. So when you look inside these drawers, these are all for casting. This is soft plastic casting stuff. And here are my silicone molds. This is cups for mixing and stirring sticks. And down here I've got another compressor for the airbrush if I needed, another airbrush, and I've got resins. Of course, I got little cubbies everywhere. This is lips and prototype lures of all types. Here I got a little mini convection toaster oven that somebody gave me, and I've got it recalibrated. You can see the dial, I had to recalibrate it. And I've got a small microwave and a little sort of dormitory refrigerator I use for drinks, and I also keep resins down there. I've got a little wall hanger assortment here where I just kind of put things that I'm in the middle of doing something with. Here's my paint booth, pressure gauge, and really precise, and I can really tweak it in for those jobs that I really need to, like silver plating. Here's my dry erase board. I've got a drawing there for a video I'm going to do. I have drawing tools above and below. Paints up here. GoPro stuff is underneath the cabinet. Right behind my paint booth, I have things that I use to paint with. You know, pattern makers. Here's some meshes. Here's some mesh that I use to for the scale effects. Here's some for tying feathers on treble hooks, and my alligator clips. And this is a cleaning kit for my airbrush. My sink, which is I love. It makes it real easy. As you can see, it's really close. I can just turn around and clean out the airbrush. This chunk of old wood here is actually where I take photographs of my lures on. Try to put outlets everywhere I could possibly put outlets. This is a little bug buzzer, and an outlet there, another outlet there with a timer. Power strips anywhere I could possibly put one. And over here I've got another source of high pressure air, along with a regulator. And then I've got lots of storage space. Some UV clear coat stuff, some old resins, those scallop scissors for making the foil scales. And here's like just sort of where I keep my bulk stuff. Here's a bunch of Dixie cups, a bunch of bottles. Since I do all my shaping and everything here, here's where all the sandpaper. Below here is where I keep my finished lures, and here, you know, each box has a bunch of lures in them. Kind of running low right now, but here's all fat belly lures, a bunch of different colors. Even have them in the soft plastic. Well, that's it. This is my dream shop. I spent a year of weekends and evenings building this part of the shed and adding this little space so I could build lures and have a nice clean room with air conditioning. Feel free to comment, ask questions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this with your friends, especially your lure painting and lure building buddies. Happy to have more subscribers. Catch you on the next one.